I was adding a little bit of my own music to it. What's up, everybody? I have to put a little laughter in it. With everything going on in the world, we need a little levity, right? But today we're going to talk about something entirely different. And we are live, according to my phone. I do hear that we are live. What's up, everybody in the chat? Music Therapy Labs here with my good friend, Ron Gunner. That's right. And we've got people in the chat, including Ron, first in. Because he knew we were going to be doing a show, for sure. First one who knew. And then Matt Stewart, always there, always waiting, and always supporting with his awesome chats into the... Oh, no, I do not. And remind me later, computer. Don't pop in on stuff on me now, updating and whatnot. Johnny Bean from the store. I guess he's out shopping. He's got coffee or something, like a tea or something in hand there, right? And then Bay Area Rich, one of our illustrious members here to the shows, right? Because I've got two. I've got the Gear and Demo show, which is about musical gear and demoing stuff when we get around to it and having fun with music, right? Like, look at all that stuff behind you there. Man. Anyway. But I did Scott Hawk also in. What's up? So Bay Area Rich, one of the supporters of the show, you can see by his membership badge. If I can say that. Let me have a sip of my coffee so I can say membership properly.
Hey, I got something for you, Laz. Listen to this.
Oh, you do? All right, bring it.
Listen.
Robin and myself would like to thank you all for watching and subscribing to Laz's channel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phil, right?
That's right.
Dr. Phil, my goodness. All the TV people in politics today has kind of got me scratching my head.
And I are grateful for each and every one of you tuning in and supporting Laz's channel.
Oh, my God. I'm happy for that. Thank you very much, Black Jack Guitar, also here. And and BC Rich 581. That's right. He's a 581st BC Rich out there. Or that's like some numbers that mean something. I don't know. And then I think Janice is doing her thing. You know, she's out there doing the synth thing. I didn't invite her. I didn't invite Johnny because I just wanted to have mano y mano and talk a little bit about more of this consciousness side of music, you know, how they're related. And you know, it's a very interesting topic that I think, you know, you can talk quite a bit on, Ron, because you have some very personal experience with how music and your consciousness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you'd like, we could start off with that story, or we can wait till people kind of file in. There's 10 people in here. Maybe I'll do a little kind of descriptive kind of little, you know, what this show should be about, I guess, and what I'm hoping we can talk about, and then we'll let people get in and they can hear your story.
Okay.
So I did save some notes. As always, I do quite a bit of research for these things. I actually, through the recent read on Daniel Levitin's book, This Is Your Brain on Music, I was trying to find where he talks about consciousness specifically in the book, and there are 4 places where he refers to consciousness here. And then I also snipped, I took a couple pictures out of this. Let me see if I can download it via my email somehow. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I didn't disappear or anything, right? You can still see me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Let me see if I could find this. I sent it to my Music Therapy Labs thing. So I have to take photos with my phone and then download them onto my computer and then upload those, right? This is brain regions. So there are different brain regions that, you know, do different things, right?
Yep.
You know a little bit about that, having suffered by the concussion that you had, right? And brain injury. You probably did a little study afterwards about what happened to you, right?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yep. Yeah, I did.
And you know, when you think about how fascinating the brain is and how it really is the seat of our consciousness, often spoken that way, the seat of our intelligence, the seat of our consciousness. In other words, that's where it's at. It's
Very
not
true.
outside, but there are a lot of people that think, oh, actually consciousness is something that we're tapping into. That's actually outside of our physical 3 or 4 or whatever dimensional, you know, reality is. And we only tap into that consciousness. Some people talk about that on the music side, and that's what I thought would be really fascinating to talk about here, is about how, you know, how true is that? Is there some truth to that?
Yep.
When
I can say there is.
Come to us from some other place, or or maybe it's everywhere, our conscious connection to the vast universe of everything, right? Maybe we're not actually these separate or separated beings living in this separated planet, in this separated solar system, separated in this arm of the galaxy that's separated from all the other galaxies throughout space time, right? And I don't separate those two, space and time. I say space time. That's kind of the way Einstein tried to get us to understand how he perceived with his ability consciously, right? And now we're talking about conscious, right, versus subconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shane back in hanging out with us here. What's up, John? Thanks for joining back. Adam D, Mike Wood, dude. Yeah, we're gonna go to that Star Wars thing. Just when and where, and I'll be there. That's right. I should get my little doll down. Where's that little doll? What is that thing called? Mashoka or something. Mashoka. It's Ashoka, right? Something like that.
I'm not sure.
Or is it like in Spanish they say azúcar? She's sweet. Anyway, we got Magic Man also here. What's up, Magic Man? Is back with the Magic Man title. I love it. Yeah, space and time in their nature are intertwined, hence space-time. Yeah, it's very interesting how if you get into the physics of it all, and then now you get your brain involved in the physics, and you look at the physics of the brain and the quantum of this, that, and the other thing. I mean, we could talk for hours on this, but we got one, so we're going to try to keep it. Yeah, Ashoka, thanks. It's Ahsoka. It's not Ashoka, it's Ahsoka. Okay, that's cool. Right on. Yeah, Mike likes Ahsoka too. Anyway, I'll hit the button on occasion. I'm wearing my Beatles Abbey Road. Where's that?
There you go.
Shirt there, because I love the Beatles. They too partook in trying to have a grander understanding of reality through
with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
And studied with the Maharishi. Yeah, that's right. Hung out with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have a private jet back then? Did they fly there
Yes.
in their private yellow submarine jet? Was that what they took?
I don't know if it was yellow, but they did have their own jet. Yeah.
If I were the Beatles and I could have my own jet, it'd be like the yellow submarine, even though it's flying.
George was the one that took to that more than the other three.
Right. And with reason too, because you have to understand, he might have known at some point where he was going to end up with cancer, right? Because he died young with cancer. And sometimes when you're facing your imminent death, you start to be more introspective and maybe therefore a little bit more outward searching for meaning of life and meaning of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because we have, there's so many conflicts going on in the world, and we have conflicts within us all the time. And one of the greatest conflicts that we've had in science when it comes to the study of our brain and our physical, presence here, and how our thoughts, our conscious thoughts, and then our subconscious thoughts, how those things affect our body and therefore our brain too, and each other, because what's going on in the brain, will obviously be, I guess, how would you put it? Expressed, maybe is the best way, into the world, right, through our actions. And that expression is going to have some, repercussion or result or whatever. We have to have a responsibility for these things, because at least we believe we should have some responsibility for our expressing ourselves into the world, because there can be consequences, right? And therefore, it's important to understand our ability to consciously affect these decisions and behaviors that we have, right? Our emotions. And that's tough, because a big percentage of it is subconscious or unconscious behavior. So that's where I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about how music is connected to all this, because our consciousness, I think, evolved along with what we call music or sound, musical things. And that's why we are affected emotionally by these things. So I think we got a good group of people in here. We got 19 people in here.
Okay.
Right, Pooh Ninja? Dude, I haven't seen you in a little while in our chat. Welcome back from the moon. Thank you for joining. Yeah, they are expensive, but not as expensive as rockets, right? And I heard some interesting conversation. I as I do my research, I listen to a bunch of podcasts, and I listen to a bunch of, very smart, much smarter people than me, who are better educated on these subjects than I am. But I have to reach out to those people, as we all do, for their expertise to have a better understanding of these things and how and why the brain works the way it does, and how music works together with the brain, and our understanding, our connection to what we call consciousness, right? So, Ron, you want to tell us your story about
well, let me ask
or your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Let me ask you, how many times do you hear a certain song and within 3 seconds it takes you back to a memory that is like it just happened?
Exactly.
That's very powerful.
That is very powerful. You know how that happens? Well, I can show you right here. The regions of the brain. let me get into this. So it's really interesting how our emotions are coming mostly derived from, like our feelings, our emotions are derived from the part of our brain called the cerebellum. So it's the old brain, as we call it, right? The older, the more less developed part. So in other words, that's the brain stem. That's the beginning part, right? I'm gonna see if I could pull this into by presenting it. Let's see. Share a slide or something, right? Share PDFs and slides. That's what I want to do. No, I don't have that one there. Oh, wait a minute. Might be able to do it from my computer. That's what I want. Yeah. Okay. Upload a file. That's what I want to do. There we go. I want to go to my pictures. And it's not there. So downloads. It's not there. This is what happens when you don't specify a place for your pictures that you just downloaded to go. Let's see. I'm just going to do a PC search and put brain regions, because that's what I named it. And I should probably find it real quick that way, if the computer is smart. Well, open. Let's see. Where is it? No, nothing. All right, nothing there either. So I'll keep searching here while we talk about this stuff. But let me go back to where I actually had it. I have it in recents and in downloads, so it should be showing up in downloads. But you know what? Let me just copy this to and just share it. No. What do I want to do? I think I want to copy this to the desktop, right? You know what? I'm just going to, oops, that was a mistake. Go back. Go back again. I'm just going to drag it to desktop, and then I can really easily find it, right?
You should be able to.
Yeah. And then I just go back to the desktop, and there she blows, right? Now go to desktop, and it should be there somewhere. And I have a lot of desktop personal. Why do I not see it there? Okay, you know what? Let me just minimize this, and I should be able to find it on the actual desktop. There it is. Okay. There it is. I see it. Okay, so I'll just pull it over here. Now I should be able to find it when I go searching for it again here. See, this is what I don't do well enough. I don't spend enough time setting this stuff up ahead of time. Okay, my computer. Okay, upload a file. Let's find it on the desktop. And where is it? Huh. All this other crap. That's really weird. I know. Well, tell us your story while I look this up.
Okay. 2 weeks after high school graduation, stupid. But prior to that, all through high school, we were the type that you'd have two trucks going down the highway, 55, 65, 70 miles an hour, have one truck going in front of the other, and then for some stupid reason, jump from the bed of one truck to the other truck. Did it all the time, never had an issue.
Did it all that. So how many times did you jump from one truck to the other?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how many.
And when you jump from one to the other, what stopped you? Like when you jumped, you were obviously
You're in the
going the
truck.
same speed, so it's really like jumping like
Well, but you
hopscotch
got
or something, right?
one truck's ahead of the other one,
Mm-hmm.
because even though you're going the same speed, when you jump out, you're there. So
Right.
you got to time it right.
Gotcha.
So we did all that stupid, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 weeks after graduation, I decided to get on top of a car and what do they call it, car surf, I
Yeah.
guess. Um,
Okay.
it didn't occur to me that it was a
There they are.
Volkswagen Bug set up, an old Volkswagen Bug set up as a Baja,
Mm-hmm.
and the top is round. It
Gotcha.
didn't occur. Yeah. So I fell off, flipped over. I'd been a weightlifter and football player, so I have big neck, shoulders. That the
Mhm.
doctor said that's actually what saved my life, because
Wow.
I hit, and then my neck it bent. I was laying in the middle of the road, in a pool of blood,
Mm-hmm.
and a friend of mine pulled up. Who was behind us stopped, and then they called the cops. The guy at the gas station called the cops. The cops showed up, tried to get me to stand up. He was saying I was drunk, and I've never drank in my life, still to this day.
Because you were obviously concussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess my friend at that point shoved the cop up against the car and said, "I've known him since kindergarten. He doesn't drink. Leave him alone." Ambulance come. By that time, I was out of it. I remember sitting up in the emergency room and projectile vomiting something that looked like from The Exorcist, because it looked like it went about 8 feet out.
You know why, right? You know why you were vomiting?
No.
Because your body actually will eject all fluids prior to death.
Oh, okay.
It's something. Yeah. So that's just so you know.
So,
You were very close, my friend.
yeah, and it was. I mean, I remember it. It like went 6 feet out off the bed. Then next thing I know, I was out, and then I all of a sudden I heard Pink Floyd, "Dark Side of the Moon," just over and over and over again. I couldn't. I was in a coma, so I couldn't move a finger. I couldn't bat an eyelash. I couldn't do anything, and that's a hell I would not wish for anybody. Because in my head, I'm just like this, thinking, talking, hey, let them know something. Move, show them you're here. Right. And I couldn't, and I'm inside screaming, dumbass,
like
do
Metallica
something.
Song, right? What
Yeah.
was it, Metallica 1, or what was
yeah.
that? Yeah.
That's why, well, when I saw that video for the first time, I broke down in tears. Because that
was probably exactly how you felt.
I mean, obviously I had the arms and legs, but yeah, I mean,
you couldn't feel them, you couldn't move them though.
Yeah. And I could hear everybody, well, occasionally the headphones would come off, they would take them off, but I could hear people in the room talking.
Just like that.
And, I could hear people talking, but it sounded like I was in a tunnel. It was like, hey,
echoing,
hey,
right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a fever, like in the Pink Floyd song? I had a fever and my hand blew up like a big balloon. I actually had a fever when I was a kid, and my thumb was like this big, and I was grabbing it. It was like that gigantic, and I heard echoing voices too, and all this stuff because I had a fever, and yeah, it was obviously hallucinating.
Well, they had flown. And I don't know if Dr. Maroon was one of the best neurosurgeons in the world. All the neurosurgeons now studied from him, or in college, in medical school, from his writings. And he's actually from this area, and he was.
Ohio has some of the best medical colleges or universities, by the way, in the world.
Well, he was with the Steelers as their doctor for a long time too.
So he knew about brain injury, didn't he?
Yeah. And so I heard him in there telling my mom and dad that what happened is a blood vessel 2 inches behind my right eye broke. It was in the section they couldn't operate on because
they couldn't get to it right there.
Yeah, I would lose my eye.
And they'd have to pluck your eye out.
Yeah, and then I would be the chances were better that I would end up being a vegetable than anything. And I heard my dad say, I know he wouldn't want to live like that, which is what comes back for him and his situation now. and I know he doesn't want to live like that, but there's nothing I can do about that. So anyhow, I heard it. My mom asked him what would happen. He said, well, all we're going to do, and they kept me induced in the coma, and they drilled a hole to relieve the pressure, the blood from the skull. If you want to talk about headache, when your brain's filling up and pushing and there's nowhere to go.
Right. That's how my wife's dad died from.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. So I remember them doing that, and I could hear that. I couldn't feel it, but I could hear that drill when they did that thing.
Wild, huh? And you had the ability to sense and hear that, but you didn't feel it.
Didn't feel it at all, but I heard it. And you imagine drill in your skull, right? It's like, okay.
Pretty wild sounding, yeah.
Yeah. So all that's going on, and then Dr. Maroon said, here's what we're going to do this, and it's either going to heal itself, we'll relieve the pressure, leave him out, let it heal, or he's just simply going to die. And I remember hearing my mom scream, and I guess she hit the floor. I mean, because here, I was only 2 weeks out of high school.
God, yeah.
And
wow.
I had a promising football career for college, and all this.
You
stuff.
were built, bro. Your pictures would be back and look. You're like a little, not little, but you're like, For that age, you were buff, dude.
Well, and I got tested for steroids. My body just takes to bodybuilding.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you might have been doing it right too. That's another.
Well, no, that I did that wrong, because what I would do is like curls.
Yeah.
I was up to 250-pound curls.
But you were maxing out each time, right? So
how many I would go, and that's all I would do that day. It's just nothing but curls, or whatever. Bench press the next day. I didn't do it like you were supposed to.
Well, no,
now I'm paying for it.
Probably, honestly, dude, when you think about it, when it comes to muscle building, if you look at, I read a book on the scientific method of bodybuilding when I was 19 or 20, and I joined Nautilus back then, which now became 24 Fitness, and they had the Nautilus machines and all this stuff. They also talked a lot about the difference between free weightlifting and all that. That book was not a Nautilus book; it was a separate book, but it talked about everyone from what was his name, Bill Pearl, to Schwarzenegger, everyone else, in between all these people. A lot of those guys did do steroids and whatnot.
Yeah, Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah, Ferrigno and all these guys. Yeah, the Hulk, right? But there was also the original TV Hulk, by the way. If you guys don't know, look it up on whatever old school TV network stuff you can look it up. Watch the original Hulk series. It's a great show. But, the bottom line is that what you did actually was you were maxing out and pushing your muscles to their ability to the max, to where they failed, and then you rested that muscle because you were doing other muscles, and you probably rested it for at least a day or two before you hit that muscle again.
Yep,
at least one day. Sometimes people plateau because they don't rest it long enough. Sometimes they have to go out 2 days to then have more growth. But that's why you were able to bulk up so fast the way you did, because you were maxing out and keep going and maxing out and keep going, because every time you max to the point where you can't lift it anymore, it sends a message to your brain that, hey, we need more muscle here because we're trying to lift something we can't lift, and we need to lift this. And the brain says, okay, I'll send you some more build muscle stuff. And then you keep pushing that limit until you're almost like a Hulk,
Well, at my biggest, my neck was 23, my chest was 63, my waist was 36, my biceps and triceps was 22.
Wow.
And my forearms were like 17. So,
wow.
I mean, but that's all I did was just,
Yeah.
But,
and free weight, right? And cables?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. That's.
I had the whole York Olympic set and all that stuff. So I just always did that. But
you had it at home, so you worked out at home. So you did it. You had plenty of time. Because
matter of fact, it was in this room
for other people and stuff. Oh wow, that's crazy.
It was in this room. This used to be a weight room too. Yeah.
Dang, dude.
So this room's been a bunch of stuff. So, but getting back to that, heard him do the drill, but I did feel the pressure release. The headache just went down, but I still couldn't do anything. I'm inside screaming, do something, let them know. And then my girlfriend at the time, she knew I liked Pink Floyd, and she ended up being in the medical field. She's a like some physical therapist,
Oh, great.
PhD or something.
That's awesome.
But
I think that's
she,
one of the best. Just let me interject. I think physical therapy is one of the best medicines there is out there, if you want to call it like a practice of medicine, because out of all the things they treated me with, that was the one thing that made the difference for me.
Mhm.
The one thing.
Yeah, you learn how to do stuff and learn how to do it
Well,
right.
you can fix the problem basically by physical,
Yeah.
exercise and therapies that will help resolve the issues that you're having. And it's super. That's the one thing that worked. I mean, I did everything else, chiropractic. I did, it did help when they used that ultrasound kind of gel, massage kind of thing, deep
Mm-hmm.
tissue kind of thing. That helped,
Yep.
relieve some of the symptom. But what got to the crux of the problem was the physical therapy. It
Mm-hmm.
strengthened muscles that I needed to strengthen to cause me not to have pain anymore, you know.
Yep.
And so I'm able to work now, whereas years ago I wasn't able to work because of the pain in my neck and my shoulder because of the pinched ulnar nerve. And I still have the numbness. I think it's just permanent damage, the
Mm-hmm.
numbness in the pinky and stuff. And the other day I was complaining to my wife. I'm trying to type something out on my computer for an estimate I'm writing up, and I can't feel the shift button properly when I'm hitting it. So I'm like, and I'm always hitting the wrong button because I can't properly feel it. And it's another reason why I have difficulty playing the piano or the keyboards or whatever the way I'd like to, because my dynamic feel
Yeah.
ability to touch and feel with that finger is gone. Now my ring finger, it's just on half of it, so I can still kind
Okay.
of feel decent. On this side, it doesn't have that weird nummy feeling, but this side does. Like when you rub it, it feels like electricity. Here it doesn't. This is like all normal. But on this side and then my pinky, I've got that constant. It feels like a little electric kind of feel.
Yeah.
It's weird.
That's what I have here
it's
and
a
here
numbness.
from my stroke, and why holding picks. I had to start using like gorilla snot and everything else because I'd be playing, just the pick just goes away, which never did before. But oh well.
Yeah, we are. So Eddie, good. I like how Eddie always brings us back into focus. Thank you, Eddie. So what Ron's talking about is how he had this experience with music and bringing his consciousness. He was conscious, but nobody else could tell because his body wasn't moving, and it was the music. So go ahead, that saved him or brought him back.
Well,
in a sense.
she obviously knew I was a big Pink Floyd fan, but she picked that one, and that was also my favorite album anyhow. But if you think about it, the songs, breathe in the air, you hear the heartbeat, you hear everything, and that was just constantly going on, and 21 days into this, when the alarms went, because I kept thinking, I got to do something, I got to get up, I got to do something, I got to let them know that I'm going to
you're
make
alive.
this. Yeah,
because some of them were talking about, hey, I don't know if he's actually there anymore.
yeah,
and,
that's what the doctor was telling him.
cutting the cord here, and that's that.
And I'm
You're
like,
going,
so,
no.
and I tried, I don't know how many times. Again, it's the worst hell you can be in. Is when every time those alarms went off, I was trying to get up, sit up, do something, and finally, at one point, obviously the last time it worked, it went off, and I opened my eyes and just lifted my head and arms up a little bit, and my mom let out a scream because I guess it scared the hell out of her. And then the nurses come in, and then the doctors, and then it all went from there. And what happened is it's all scarred tissue now. And Dr. Moon said if that's how it happens, that'll actually be stronger than it was originally.
Interesting.
So,
okay. So now that you don't have any vision problems in that eye separately because of that, because
No.
it's behind the eye.
Yeah, it's behind. It's 2 inches behind the eye.
Yeah. Oh, pretty far in there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why he couldn't operate on it.
Gotcha. It's inside the brain at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I couldn't drive for 6 months, swim for 6 months. I couldn't do anything for a long time. But then it went away. Well, it didn't go away, but healed itself. And I do attribute most of that to that album.
Very cool.
Because again, that album's telling you breathe in the air. Right. You hear the heartbeat and all that stuff.
So let's go ahead and connect this all. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I don't think there could have been a better album for that purpose. And I will tell anybody, if you know anybody in a coma, and I know there's different comas, different styles. but I was able to hear everything and everybody. So if you know anybody that's in a coma, talk to them. Even though they may not be
I
able
believe
to
that too.
respond, they
I
can at
believe
least
that
hear
too.
you, or they
When
should be able to.
Yeah, when my wife's father was a month in on his induced coma because of the same kind of blunt trauma injury to his brain, and they had the same swelling, edema of the brain and all that, and they tried to release it with, drilling into the brain and all that, but he wasn't coming out of the coma yet. But I got to tell you that the particular situation that he was in at a hospital in Peru that's underfunded and under, way lower standards and way lower abilities to get in there and spend time with him and be with him. It just wasn't allowed,
Mm-hmm.
and they did allow us after waiting outside. And there was like tons of people waiting outside in hallways and in the outdoor outside of the hospital, wanting to get in to see their family member or whoever was in the hospital. And they just weren't set up for that kind of visitorship
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So bottom line is that they did finally let me in there, and I did practice and learn something to speak in Spanish to him. And the thing I said to him was that we're all waiting for you to wake up, and I'm here to welcome you back. But if you can't make it, I want you to know that I'm always going to be at your daughter's side, and I'll be there for her. And we're all waiting for you to wake up. Next morning he passed away.
Yep.
And then everyone in the family said that he was just waiting for the last member of the family to say goodbye to. And that was really touching to me. But I believe it's true, because I think he was conscious, but he, just like in your case, just couldn't.
Yeah, and
couldn't
I mean,
say
you
anything,
can't. I can't explain
And
the hell that is, because just like
right.
you and I are talking right now, that's what I was hearing in my head, and I'm to do something, move a finger, move anything, blink an eye, and nothing, and it just sucked.
Yeah, like Magic Man saying here, I think that's why I like live music so much. I have some stuff to talk to you about that today. So, because it's time you can literally feel the music. So there's some really interesting science on this, Magic Man, that I learned today. I'll share with you guys. And Ron saying, Blackjack saying to Ron, you're a very lucky man, Ron. And,
Thank you, sir.
And Peggy saying that I've heard that from a lot of people, that they can still hear, right?
Yep.
They know what's going on. Now, did you have any experience, like some people report, like being outside of their body and looking down at your body, anything like that ever? 'Cause that's curious to me.
No.
Okay, so you just physically.
Well, let me say,
you were in your body, but you could hear.
Yeah. As far as that goes, now the emergency room, when I did the projectile vomiting, I really don't know if that was sitting here watching it or above watching it. I just know that it went, off past me.
At that point,
and
your
off the
consciousness is quite stressed.
Yeah.
Let's put it.
I didn't know if that was in or out, or I just remember seeing it, and then that next thing I know, I hear people talking in a tunnel.
Well, we're halfway roughly through the show. I want to do a little PA, public announcement here. Ron Gunner says, let's put him full front and center, you want to donate some guitar parts? Now, that's not for him, by the way, you all. What Ron has been doing lately is he has been helping others who need guitars that function, and is taking his own free time, to do these things for people, like our friend CC, who I'll give a call later today. CC, if you're out there listening, if you're lurking or listening to the rerun, he reached out to me last night. By the way, thank you very much to any and everyone who reached out and say, hey, Laz, are you okay? Because sometimes if I don't do a show like Thursday, I couldn't get to it because I have a lot going on lately, you guys. We've had a lot of apartments that we rented that I spent a lot of extra time trying to get rented. And then there's a lot of paperwork and things you have to deal with for these rentals. And on top of that, I'm helping out with my sister-in-law for her dad's service that we're going to have next Saturday, that I'm performing some musical pieces on piano. So messed up finger and all, I'm going to be playing some pretty tough pieces there. So I've been practicing them. I even downloaded a software or some kind of a website and 14-day free trial, so I'm using it. so I can learn a bunch of these pieces a little quicker than if I was just reading it. And it gives me the ability to kind of do a loop and just replay parts and read it, and then I just try to play it by memory, and that way I have it mastered, and then I'm moving on to the next song and the next song. So I have about 5 to 10 songs, depending on what they want me to do, that I'm going to be prepared for to play at the event. But one of them is going to be right in the middle of the kind of, not really a mass, but like a service, a ceremony of sorts, right? Because he's Catholic. And so I'll be playing the Ave Maria by Schubert, which is not a simple piece. There are a lot of simple versions, and I found an intermediate to advanced kind of version that I liked how it sounded. So I'm going with that one. But, you don't want to make a mistake at an event like that, right? So I've been spending a lot of extra time on that. I've even put this aside. If you guys want to see this, might as well show you all. I showed this to Ron in picture before. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but I've still got a lot to do on this thing. Let's see if I can find the top here. So this is, I'll solo me on this so you guys can see. This is the window shade that I've been creating or making. That's going to go in the window there on the outside that faces the room. It looks a little funky right now because it doesn't have the rings in it or the rods in it to hold it even. But I've got like all these rings that I've been hand sewing onto this through this material that's that thick. There's like this thick fabric here. Then there's this like thick cotton batting, kind of heavy weight kind of stuff back there, and then just a drapery white lining like pillowcase.
While you're standing right there,
all these things.
Wait a minute. While you're standing right there,
like that, I gotta go.
You unplugged your mic. Mic's off.
Yeah, I did unplug it by accident. So
what I was going to say was, while you were standing there holding it, keep talking, then hold it up in front of you and see how much it deadened the sound.
Okay, let's try that. But there are going to be 2 of these. So there's one inside the window and one outside on the wall, against the wall. So imagine this is the window, right? You have one that's against the wall and the window, and then one inside there as well. So I've got a lot more rings to sew. And I've got a whole nother one of these that goes inside the window, but it's massive. How does that work? Does that deaden the sound a little?
Drop it down some.
Drop it down like this, like that. Hello.
Yeah, you can hear the difference.
Hello, 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 hello.
Yeah, you can hear the difference.
Now imagine 2 layers of this. And not only that, when it's going to be hanging, it's got those ruffles in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to really, really deaden the sound.
Yep.
But it's, I'm almost regretting having done the shade version. Because if I would have done just a curtain version, it'd be a lot easier. You just have, a slot at the top that you just slip it onto a rod and done. Here I'm sewing all these rings so I can pull it up and open and access the window. The other one I can just slide it over and open the window. But I didn't want to have that big amount of ruffled material facing the backside of all the equipment there, because I want to be able to have space to get in there and swap cords and cables and stuff. So I had a reason for this, but it's taken freaking forever because the material is so thick that it's like I can't even hold this big needle to stick it through. Anyway, I digress, but let's get back to this
well,
topic
the thing about the guitar parts, I also do it for people who can't afford
Yeah, that's my problem. I know.
guitars. I've had schools and private teachers get a hold of me and say, "Hey, so and so, this is like I did a Glary guitar 2 weeks ago for a little girl that the action on it was like 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch high at the bottom." And I just redid. So what I do is, with the donated parts, I donate my time and all that and do it all. and then the donated parts. That way, there's no cost, and I'm getting
Right.
people into this or people.
Right. Right. Isn't it a
So
beautiful thing? So
that's
really, really
I'm
awesome.
glad you brought that up because I don't want people to think I'm just hoarding parts. No,
Yeah, he's not begging for parts. He's actually trying to help the community out there and get more people who have not means to get a decent working guitar.
And I've given them to veterans, a lot of kids, and just people who want to do it but can't afford to get into it. So
right.
Let's
get back into the brain thing. Oh, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
I do have one picture.
Okay.
Kind of. I don't know how dark it's
when you were like in the hospital.
No. This was 36-inch waist and on stage.
When you were like,
yeah.
I think I've seen this picture. Go ahead.
But you can see like the guitar. My waist is smaller than the guitar, and then you can see the
rest of you. Yeah, I remember that picture. Yeah.
So yeah, that was.
There you go.
That's when I could play good too.
Right on.
Strokes and hand operations kind of limited that.
Yeah, there are cases when people aren't sober and they get in these accidents. Eddy's talking with the Magic Man about. So let's get into the brain regions. How about that?
Cool.
I'll go ahead and put this up here. You guys see that?
Yep.
So here it has a little bit more of the specifics about like the brain and different parts of the brain and how the memory, how we get the memory to our consciousness. So I'm trying to get the right words. Words is hard. But the hippocampus there up the top right there, you see that little like peanut shaped kind of gland. It's actually wider. It widens out across the bottom of the brain. So if we had a different angle of the brain, you'd see that. But that is the part of the brain where memory for musical experiences and contexts of the music, like what it relates to, right, to you. Is it a happy thing or not happy thing, or context of sort? That's where that memory is stored and where you retrieve it from, was the word I was looking for before. Retrieve our memory from, right? Then the corpus callosum, that kind of more like rounded shaped thing there. Do you guys see my pointer or no? Probably not. It's just on my computer. Yeah. I've got to figure out a way to do that. That'd be nice, right? I can go like this. And this thing over there. Anyway, so the corpus callosum connects the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. So that also, it's like the bridge between the left and the right part of the brain. And then we have the nucleus accumbens there. That's that little thing, that black dot that they're pointing at. That's where emotional reactions to music are, I guess, stored, if you want to call it that. That's where the majority of the neuron connections, the connections, between the brain's cells. And there are these, obviously, it's almost like little wires going all over, where you have these connections between different synapses. Okay. And then we have the amygdala. We've all heard of the amygdala, right? The Abdullah oblongata is in a different portion of the brain, but the amygdala, that's the emotional reactions to music part of the brain. So in between where the nucleus accumbens is and where the hippocampus is the amygdala. Okay. And then we have the cerebellum that we were talking about earlier, which is at the bottom back portion of the brain, right under here, right, where your baseball cap kind of hooks onto. That part has movement such as foot tapping, dancing, playing an instrument, right? And it involves emotional reactions to music. So that's that more ancient old brainstem part of the brain right there. And what's really fascinating about music is how there are reactions happening in all parts of the brain at once with music, something very unique. You don't have that same kind of reaction happening in the brain, or those kind of actions going on, right, with almost anything else, with any other action. There are multiple things taking place with music, because you have movement with music, whether it's the tapping or whatever. singing, and then you have those parts too. There are other parts of the brain they're not pointing out here that involve facial expression, the use of your lips and your tongue and your face and your muscles of your face. Your face has more muscles than almost any part of your body that are very complex and unique in how they are used to form expression and sound with your mouth. And then we have these other parts of the brain. Here you have your prefrontal cortex there. We all know about that one, right? Creation of expectations. And then there's the violation and satisfaction of any expectations part of the brain. So that's the thought kind of part of the brain, the higher part of the brain, the more modern part of the brain, if you want to call it that. Then you got that center section up there, the two different colors there, the one darker one on the left, the motor cortex movement, again, of foot tapping and dancing and playing an instrument connected with the cerebellum. And what's really interesting, these are the frontal and prefrontal cortex parts of the brain that have a direct connection to the cerebellum, which is the old brain. So that's why your emotions can cause you to think irrationally, right? And that's how irrational thought can cause certain kinds of emotions in you, because there's a two-way street there that are direct connection between the cerebellum and the prefrontal cortex and other parts of the brain there. And then how that forms memories in your mind will help form your identity of sorts, or your consciousness, right? I think we've blown the blown. That was the horn on the train saying, "Okay, stop talking, lads. Too much info." But I think you guys are getting getting the crux of it. That music, there's a lot going on there that different parts of the brain are connected to when it comes to how music is felt, experienced, consciously or subconsciously, right? There's a visceral subconscious reaction to music and loud sound. And let me just continue with the brain parts here, and then I'll go into showing you guys some stuff out of Levitin's book here. But this is actually from his book, by the way, right here. Pull that up for you guys. So I took those pictures out of that book, just so you know. So the sensory cortex, of course, the tactile feedback from playing an instrument and dancing part of the brain there. And then at that center auditory cortex, the first stages of listening to sounds. Yeah, the first, okay, I can't read this, it's so tiny. Let me zoom this in on this for myself. The first stages of listening to sounds, the perception and analysis of tones. And then in the very back part of the brain, you have the visual cortex. Let me go back into that. There we go. Reading music, looking at performers' movements, including one's own. So like if you're working in an orchestra together, right? You got to be able to use your not just what you're hearing, but the visual cortex helps you perceive what else is going on around you, so you can react to it the way I guess you should. Some people just play with their eyes closed, but if you're playing in an orchestra, it might be helpful to watch what the conductor's doing and stuff like that. And then the cerebellum here again, movements such as foot tapping, dancing, and playing an instrument also involved in emotional reactions to music, right? So now let me go into that here. So I looked up in his book here where he talks about consciousness, okay? And I looked up several different sections here. So in the beginning section of the page 71 here, he talks about consciousness. He says, a lot of people like really loud music. This is the part I was going to tell Magic Man, Brent, about the loud music and being at concerts and why I love it. And some people don't. You know, my sweetie doesn't like to go to the movies with the loudness. I enjoy the loudness. And this explains it here to a degree. A lot of people like really loud music. Concert goers talk about a special state of consciousness, a sense of thrills and excitement when the music is really loud, over 150 decibels, all right? Hence why loud amps, the people that are using Sims and fake amps and fake whatever can't quite get this feeling, and they don't know what they're missing because they haven't felt it before, and they're happy with where they are in their simulation land. But I'll tell you what, there's a different state of consciousness, like he's saying here, that occurs when your mind is being overblown by sound, and he goes into that. So we
Feeling
don't
the
know
air.
yet, right? Yeah. So he says we don't yet know why this is so, that there is this state of consciousness or sense of thrills and excitements. Part of the reason, he says, may be related to the fact that loud music saturates the auditory system, causing neurons to fire at their maximum rate. So think about this. You have your neurons firing off in your brain, calm meditation, listening to some gong bells, or, whatever. Right. It's gonna, is that messages?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like in that state, you're not a lot of neurons are firing all at once, right? You're in a calm state. Whereas when you're in this excited, thrill seeking, thrill feeling kind of conscious state, right, it's a different thing. Neurons are firing off at maximum speed, maximum rate, right, which is by the speed of light, by the way, right, because neurons are
Yeah.
electrical impulses, so it's speed of light stuff, right, maximum. Okay, so when many neurons are maximally firing, this could cause an emergent property, a brain state qualitatively different from when they are firing at normal rates. So there's a different quality of sense of consciousness going on there. In other words, your state of consciousness is now different. You are in a different state of consciousness. Period. That's what's happening. So still, some people like loud music, some people don't. Loudness is one of the 7 major elements of music, along with pitch, rhythm, melody, harmony, tempo, and meter. Very tiny changes in loudness have a profound effect on the emotional communication of music. A pianist may play 5 notes at once and make one note only slightly louder than the others, causing it to take on an entirely different role in the overall perception of the musical passage. Loudness is also an important cue to rhythms, as we saw above, and to meter, because you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You know where one's at because it's the louder one, right? And what was Ringo Starr of the Beatles famous for being known for? Why he was so good? He was known as the beat of the Beatles. He had the downbeat, man. He had that. And jazz is like that too. That's like syncopation. You have to know where the one's at. Because if you don't know where the one's at, you don't know when you're coming in or going out or what you're playing when. So the downbeat, as they would call it, right, is super crucial. And that's what he's talking about here with loudness, right? Then Daniel Leviathan, Leviathan, how do we say it? Leviathan. I really need to meet this guy someday. Anyway, he goes on to saying that that listening to music starts with a subcortical below the cortex. So we showed this part of the brain, right? Oops. Let's bring it back in. Below the cortex. So you have the visual cortex up above, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cortex being the center, basically the core, right? Let's put this one up. Add the stage. All right. Well, it doesn't specifically say where the cortex is. I was hoping for that. Anyway. But he talks about how below the cortex structures, the cochlear, nuclear, the brainstem, the cerebellum, then moves up to the auditory cortices on both sides of the brain. So that's how musical listening starts, in that kind of directional pattern, right? Then he goes on to say, at a deep level, the emotions we experience in response to music involve structures deep in the primitive reptilian regions of the cerebral vermis and the amygdala, like we talked about before. Let's bring back the amygdala. Oops, don't remove it, let's add it. There it is. The amygdala, as properly pronounced. The amygdala. Like Kamala versus Kamala. That's all the politics I'm getting into today. The brain is, it says, the idea of regional specificity is evident in this summary, but a complementary principle applies as well, that of distribution of function. So in other words, how things are distributed when it comes to emotions being processed by your brain, okay? The brain is a massively parallel device. Now think about pedals. You guys all know pedals, right? When you're talking about parallel effects, right? That's same time effects being sent through, not in series. So parallel, you get a lot going all at once, whereas in series, you get it like this, right? One through the other, through the other, through the other. And sometimes one can affect the other, whereas here, it's going in parallel. So they're talking about there's no single language center, nor is there a single music center. Rather, there are regions that perform component operations and other regions that coordinate the bringing together of this information. It says, finally, we have discovered only recently that the brain has a capacity for reorganization that vastly exceeds what we thought before. Remember where they used to think, oh, your brain is, if you kill a part of the brain, it's dead and you can't do this or that anymore. Incorrect. This has been proven through many cases, like even Ron's, right? That the ability is called the neuroplasticity. In some cases, it suggests that regional specificity, if I can say that right, may be temporary, as the processing centers for important mental functions actually move to other regions after trauma or brain damage. That is such great news when it comes to, brain injury. Because when it comes to even emotional injury, when we're talking about brain injury, we can help people with that, right? There are structures of the brain that they've shown if they remove, they take out the psycho out of the psycho's brain. Do you know that? I've talked about this before. It's starting to become a very, controversial science, but just like they used to do lobotomies in the past, right? To calm people. They actually are proving that they can snip out parts of the brain, and suddenly the person who was a psycho, who used to have these voices telling him to kill himself and other people and whatnot, they remove that part of the brain, and suddenly those voices are gone. And they are consciously able to now say, hey, I don't hear those voices anymore. I'm okay now. Now whether we want to believe them or not, that's another story, because we're not quite there yet with having the 100% pure proof that we can trust that these people actually be able to function and, be normal, as we would like to call it. But it's fascinating. Okay, let's see what Eddy always has great things to say. Laz, one of your links, Olivia, cited unconsciousness. All the hours of deliberate practice built the musical memory that allowed my mind to wander while still being able to play the entirety. Yeah, right. So yes, should I read that part?
Yeah.
So well, let's go into this whole question of consciousness thing too, but I'll also talk a little bit about what Levinen's experience with Francis Crick has been over his time before he passed away. You know who Francis Crick is? He and Watson were the two who discovered the structure of DNA. Now, so this guy's been deep in on the brain for quite a while, trying to understand not just the function of DNA and how our bodies, how are we evolved and all this kind of stuff, but he's very, very interested in the brain, and he wrote a book called The Astonishing Hypothesis, in which he argued that consciousness arises from the brain, that the sum total of our thoughts, beliefs, desires, and feelings come from the activities of neurons, glial cells, and the molecules and atoms that make them up. So now we're getting into the quantum stuff, right? This was interesting, but as I've said, says Levinen, I am somewhat biased against mapping the mind for mapping's own sake, and biased towards understanding how the machinery gives rise to human experience. So what they're talking about here is that a lot of people involved in the science of all this, right, have tried to understand how the brain works, and so what we do is we label and structure things, and we put things in boxes, and we say this area does this and this area does this. When we poke this here, it gives this person a feeling of love and empathy, and we poke this area here, and it gets them angry and aggressive and whatnot, and physical, so they're talking about how the brain, they've mapped it out to these different sections, and they do what they do, right? Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out. He sent me a video. So Eddy says, while unconsciously playing the piece, Olivia describes how her mind wandered. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? Working on the problem, an unrelated issue, No, you're correct. So let's get into that. All right. So I can go a little bit more into some of this, kind of sciencey stuff real quick. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff about, the philosophy and understanding of, what's going on here. And then the psychology and science, psychiatry and science part. Psychiatry more involves more drugs and other kind of physical, actual changes that we can cause to the brain through chemicals. That's psychiatry side of thing. Then there's the psychology thing, whereas we're not using an external input of some drug or something, whatever it is, right, to affect us, whether it's hormones or whatever, but we actually bring those about through meditation or other kinds of practices like music or whatever, breathing, for example, things like that we've shown in like transcendental meditation and stuff that you see coming out of India and the East, right? Buddhism and all this stuff, like we were talking about, the Beatles went into that. And then, of course, like the external introduction of drugs and other things, but then there's just the meditation and not using anything. Sometimes actually taking away things from your body. So fasting, no food, now that'll chemically alter your state. How the like Muhammad, right, in the cave, how many days did he go without eating anything or sleeping or whatever? So that's gonna alter your mind and your consciousness and functionality, but may open your mind as well in ways. So yeah, I'll check it out, dude, but I can't watch it right now. Yeah, at the cellular level. Yeah, it is really, really fascinating, isn't it, Magic Man? Yeah. We're trying to understand all this stuff. But let's go to what Eddy was talking about here, and exactly some of the links that I put into the description. I'm glad people are reading that. Eddy does, it appears. Where Olivia, who wrote this, or they were talking about this. I think there was a woman named Helen. Let me pull it up here. Helen Bonny, or Bonny, Music and Consciousness, journal she wrote in about the harmonic connection. Or is that a different one? Yeah, so there's this different one. Sorry, Consciousness and Music, a harmonic connection, at the Air Force Research Labs.com, and I have that link there where Olivia talks about during performance session or season, my friends and I used to say, head empty, no thoughts, as a way to manage performance nerves, meaning don't think, just play. Like I told my sweetie, I said, hey, stop thinking about it now. You've already played this song a bunch of times. Let go, count to 10, let go, let it all go. And now just count to 10 and just let it flow through you, feel it. And then she played the Fur Elise first part without a mistake, most beautifully, more dynamically than she's ever been able to play before, and that comes from practice. So your fingers aren't going to do things until they know how to do them, right? And that's what she's talking about here, head empty, right? So achieving this state is as if your brain went on autopilot. Your autopilot is your unconscious mind at work. So here they're talking about like what Levin and them also speak about in this book, about how there are two parts of how our brain is functioning for us, at least the way we perceive our brain's functioning in everyday actions. There's the subconscious stuff that's going on, right? Like what we call muscle memory sometimes, what we call, the that's the subjective side of music, what we feel, and then there's the conscious, more mechanical side of things, right? The more thought, like, oh, I'm thinking through, I gotta play this, the one here and the three there, and then this and the that and that, and then this chord and that chord and this key and that, augmented seventh or whatever thing, that's the thought, the conscious part. And then there's the one that already knows that, and so now you like riding a bike, you don't have to think about where the brake's at and what to do with the brake. You just step on it because at the moment that you need it, because you know where it's at, and it's just almost second nature, we call it, right? It becomes what my science, the head of the science, the psychology department in College of San Mateo, Jim Clifford, would say, automatized. We've automatized the behavior now. We've made it automatic. We don't have to consciously think of it. We just do it almost like a reaction, so it's like a second nature kind of thing. And so what we've previously had in our brain as something we have to think through and consciously put effort into memorizing and doing, exactly, you get into the flow state, right? That state that we sometimes call the zone or whatever, the Zen zone or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to that flow state not as a beginner. you're not going to be in the flow right as a beginner usually. Now, there are people that, and even Mozart, we talked about this last time, Mozart and the practice and versus play. Mozart's like, I wasn't born with this ability, y'all. I've had, I don't know how many countless hours of training that my father probably beat into me, perform, monkey, perform, and that's probably why he died young, because he went insane, basically, right? Probably from poverty or whatever, but he was driven to madness to some degree, if you look at some of the history on it. And the bottom line is that that there's sometimes, you can beat the love out of something too, right? And that's why we're talking about that last week, about what's the difference between practice and play, and if you're able to balance those things, how beneficial that is, right? So yeah, the muscle memory is the first thing, absolutely. So that's basically what Levitin here is talking about with Crick's, who's one of the discoverers of DNA, of functioning of how our
And
entire system works.
muscle memory is something I preached all the time teaching the gun classes.
Absolutely. Because like riding a bike or driving a car, I don't have a problem driving fast in a car because I've done a lot of fast driving. Have you ever been in a car with a real race car driver? And you ever see that movie about that race car driver? God, I forget the name. Anyway, bottom line is that these people are already on that automatized level where they can do things and function in a way that other people can't, because they've already done it, how many 10,000 hours or more of it or whatever. They're masters of that functioning. So it's not hard for them. Whereas like somebody who's never been on a roller coaster before, who's never even seen an escalator before, and you stick them on an escalator and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Have you ever gone to an escalator when it's not moving and you step on it and start walking up and you're like kind of weirded out a little bit because you're expecting it to be moving and it's not?
What I used to do, I used to freak
Stuff
people
like
out.
that,
I'd get on it. I
perception
would
of
get on
things.
an escalator, and then the
And then
rail
it's
goes
going-
up with the steps. I would
Yeah.
hold the rail.
Oh, and it's going
So-
opposite, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it
going
would
a little
stop.
slower
They're
or
like,
faster. They're like, let go of the rail, and you're like, I don't want to, and it's pulling you down. That's funny, yeah. But this is what we're talking about here: the difference between the subconscious control over your actions and behavior and emotions, and the conscious control of your behavior, emotions, and actions, right? So balancing these things, right, is crucial in functioning normally, if you want to call, being able to function normally. And what we call normal, by the way, you guys, it's not some made up thing. Normalizing is basically when you find the center of something. In other words, when you're not on the fringes here, but you're at a place where you have homeostasis. Another thing I like to bring up on this show is you got to find homeostasis. You got to find balance, right? And in anything, right? But in music, when it comes to how it affects our stasis or homeostasis, right? Sometimes it can help our homeostasis to go to a loud rock concert and feel something, that can
Yep.
give us a different perception of our reality that sometimes we need to better understand that our realities aren't one and the same all the time. It's not black and white. It's not like, oh, it's this or that and only this and that. There are a lot of different realities that people live in this world, right? We have people living in virtual realities, gaming all the time. Their lives are practically, I have a nephew whose life is more in games than in the real world, because in the real world, she, by the way, my nephew became a she, who always was a she, but couldn't be, and is now working towards that. She has lived most of her life in the game world, because there she can express herself as she is, whereas in the real world she's not accepted. In that world she is perfectly accepted and actually excels and is one of the top game team builders, World of Warcraft, whatever they call these groups that they put together and they raid or whatever. She's one of the top people in the world that does this. Nobody knows who she is, and she probably doesn't want you guys to know who she is, but the bottom line is that she has never been accepted, for her own brilliance and abilities in the real world. A dropout in school because she wasn't accepted for the fact that she's half Mexican and half white, whatever, all this kind of stuff that she had to deal with on top of being male, perceived as male by the rest of us, and not allowed to be who she really wants to be, which is not male. So there are a lot of these issues that we're really struggling with as a society, or as world societies, trying to understand and deal with. But for them, who are the ones that are behind the eight ball here, it's pretty obvious that they don't get to be free. And so I'm always going to champion people who are having their liberties and their freedoms stripped from them for zero apparent reason. There's no reason to it. I don't care what rationale people try to bring to me on it. They have no right to tell someone else how they should live if they're not hurting you. Period. But anyway, we'll get off that subject. But bottom line is, what I'm talking about here is how, consciousness and what you perceive as your personality or who you are is in many ways based on our experiences. And this is where Levitin goes into this a little bit too. So they talk about, this problem when it comes to understanding. They call it the hard problem of consciousness, right? Trying to understand, that subjective versus the concrete understanding of our realities, right? And how we've tried to understand that, tried to gain an understanding of it, right? And music has been one of those things that has probably done more in our world to help connect people and better understand our connection to our various different realities or consciousness than anything. Because how many of you out there would never have heard of any of this kind of transcendental meditation stuff, or any of this stuff about mind-body balance, homeostasis, feeling emotions created by, exposure to certain kind of music? If it wasn't for music, you probably would be stuck in that more black and white little world of yours, right? Because you would not have been exposed as much to these emotions and feelings. It's just like we were talking about last week and previous times too, about music has a certain kind of effect on us that if you tried to watch an advertisement or a TV show or a movie or something like that, and there was zero music in it, it would just have a completely different, feeling, or you wouldn't connect with what's going on emotionally in those situations if the music wasn't added to it, right? It's just like the difference between when you actually have a conversation with someone face to face versus on the phone versus through text. How many times have you been misunderstood because what you're trying to express through written words or text did not quite come across the way you intended for them to receive it? Because their perception of it was based on their experiences and their perception of their reality, right? They're going to project themselves or their feelings. I had an issue with a friend of mine. I was talking to Ron about that a little few days back. How sometimes people's perception of what you're trying to say to them, they take it completely out of context. They're totally taking it wrong. And because it's in text, and you want to talk to them on the phone or express it, but they don't want to talk with you on the phone, but they'll do it in text, which was kind of surprising to me. But the bottom line is, it is what it is. Sometimes people just can't get out of their own head, is another way to put it. And music is one of those things that has really helped connect us and get us out of our head. Like what, Eddy was bringing up about this Air Force, person in the Air Force talking about, how they find a way to get in the zone. And she was actually so good at this already that she was thinking of something else random while in a practice or a performance, and once they got to another section of the piece, she didn't realize, oh, we're already there, because she was spacing out while she was just going through the flow of it, not even consciously thinking of what she's doing. Was actually consciously, her mind was on something completely different at the same time, going through the physical part of actually playing the piece on the violin or whatever she played. So she says, in other words, slow, deliberate practice of the piece hours a day in practice room will allow me to play it automatically when performing on stage, which is a classic interaction of the multiple memory systems in the brain, like what Livingston was talking about. When preparing for my senior recital, I would run through my repertoire with intense focus. I would lyrically play the famous exposition of the Beethoven Violin Concerto. My mind would wander off, thinking about my project for my FDA regulations class, and I would suddenly realize I'm at the cadenza without any recollection of playing the development of the recapitulation part of the song, right? All the hours of deliberate practice built the muscle memory, and it's not just muscle memory, it's the brain connection, right? That allowed my mind to wander while still being able to play the entirety of the movement. So I quote another part here. This is something put together by AI, by the way. The unconscious mind plays a crucial role in recognizing patterns and storing implicit memories that guide our actions and behaviors. It allows us to perform learned skills and effortlessly execute tasks like performing the Beethoven Violin Concerto. On the other hand, conscious learning, characterized by deliberate practice and focused attention, is essential for intentional practice and eventually mastering new pieces of music. That's why I'm practicing so much. Both conscious and unconscious memory systems work in tandem, each serving its unique purpose in our overall cognitive functioning. So our thinking, our cognitive functioning, right? And that affects our body too. Understanding the interplay between these two modes of learning can shed light on the complexity and efficiency of our cognitive processes, right? So now I'll end with this, if you guys don't mind. Oh, let me read what you guys are saying here. Mark's gas station, what's up? Missing body language also, yeah, right? So that would be a case for music and unconsciousness. Exactly. So, and I would argue this. I don't think that there is a separation really between conscious and unconscious. I think both are going on at the same time. That's what Levitin here is talking about too. They talk about what they say here is a solution to the binding problem. Crick, one of the discoverers of DNA, proposed was the synchronous firing of neurons throughout the cortex. Part of the astonishing hypothesis, the book he wrote, was that consciousness emerges from the synchronous firing at 40 hertz of neurons in the brain. Neuroscientists generally considered that the operations of the cerebellum occurred at a preconscious level because it coordinates things like running, walking, grasping, reaching, and are normally not under conscious control, right? There's no reason that the cerebral neurons can't fire at 40 hertz to contribute to consciousness, he said. Although we don't normally attribute human-like consciousness to those organisms that have only a cerebellum, such as the reptiles, look at the connections, he says. He had taught himself neuroanatomy during his time at Salk, and he had noticed that many researchers in cognitive neuroscience were not adhering to their own founding principles to use the brain as a constraint for a hypothesis. Crick had little patience for such people, he said. He believed that true progress would only be made by people rigorously studying details about human brain structure and function. So it goes on into this one section a little later on where he says, look at the connections, he says, He says the connections between the cerebellum and music wasn't that hard to see. The Cold Spring Harbor participants were talking about how the frontal lobe, the center of the most advanced cognitions in humans, is connected directly to the cerebellum, the most primitive part of the human brain. The connections run in both directions, and each structure influences the other. Regions in the frontal cortex that Paula Talal, yeah, there we go, we get the dong again, that always comes at the right time, was studying those that help us to distinguish precise differences in speech sounds were also connected to the cerebellum. So they go on to talk about how we as humans in our frontal cortex evolved because of our development of speech and language. And as we develop speech and language, we further, the evolution of sound and music evolved along with us because, as I talked about in the previous show, music was our first language. We probably spoke more in sound and music than just text him back and say, stop texting me.
I did.
Well, we got to end because we're almost half hour long. But yeah, that's the thing about the connection between consciousness and music. Our conscious understanding, our consciousness, our conscious understanding of the world and our reality is affected by music. It's evolution. Our consciousness has evolved with music, and music has helped evolve. It's helped as a tool in our evolutionary process. I truly believe that. So,
music
is that the real
affects-
Johnny Bean? I thought you were never going to bring
people-
up that guy's name. Anyway.
Music affects people in so many different ways. And one time we were going to a match, and a shooting match, and the guy I was with I don't even know what band it was. I was driving. He goes, you got to hear this. He put it in, and within a minute, I was pissed. The music just made me want to. I was like, take that out.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know who it was. I just wanted to punch somebody.
Wow. Yeah. And that's really interesting how the emotions can come.
Yeah.
And this is another reason why there are actually people out there, might have perfectly good, understandable reasons why they're afraid that their children might be, affected by music they're listening to, because they see a mosh pit and they don't understand what's really going on. There is a social connection. They think it's violence. What's the difference between that and kids in school wrestling on the wrestling team or smashing into each other on the football team? That's violent.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of controlled violence in a sense that's going on in a mosh pit. But are those people out there purposefully trying to hurt each other, to maim each other? No, on neither case. In the moment, that guy's job on the field is to tackle that guy. He's not trying to hurt him and kill him. He's trying to win the game.
Yeah.
It's a conscious and even a subconscious effort to perform in that instance, just like in a rock concert. Each element of the band has to perform, and you play off each other sometimes. That's what I love about jazz and jamming with people sometimes, is when you can get into a groove with people where you're playing off each other. You're not playing against each other. You're playing off each other. In other words, you're each adding a little something to the performance. And sometimes one person's performance will elicit a feeling, or, hey, I recognize that chord he's doing. I'm going to play off that now. And then, hey, that rhythm that guy just introduced, I'm going to play off that now. And then now you start getting that kind of connection going on that is so unique that music brings about. You see those kinds of things happening in other forms of, sports and other things, all kinds of activities. You'll find that stuff, but music is it's really, in a way that I think is unique,
Yeah.
And so I think we should leave it at that, right? Johnny, it's my show. Like you say. That's why I talk. So I'll end on this. So we'll end on this thing. This is out of the Oxford psychology department there. They say music and consciousness, philosophical, psychological, and cultural perspectives on this topic, right? What is consciousness? Why and when do we have it? Where does it come from? And how does it relate to the lump of squishy gray matter in our heads? Rattle that around, Johnny. Or to our material and social worlds, right? While neuroscientists, philosophers, psychologists, historians, and cultural theorists offer widely different perspectives, right, on these fundamental questions concerning what it is like to be human, most agree that consciousness represents a hard problem. The emergence of consciousness studies as a multidisciplinary discourse addressing these issues has often been associated with rapid advances in neuroscience, perhaps giving the impression that the arts and humanities have arrived late at the debating table when we're talking about intellectual pursuits, right? The longer historical view suggests otherwise, but it is probably true that music has been underrepresented in accounts of consciousness. Like I was saying, I theorize that our consciousness has evolved through music in a way, with music, and has been a tool in our evolving consciousness and even intellectual abilities or understanding of things, right? How many of you heard that some of the biggest geniuses in the world have all been musical? Everyone from Einstein on. Look at how many of the top minds are in some way musical people. So the longer historical view suggests otherwise, but it is probably true that music has been underrepresented in accounts of consciousness. Music and consciousness aims to redress the balance. Its 20 essays offer a timely and multifaceted contribution to, oops, I'm going to try to go up. 20 essays offer a timely and multifaceted contribution to consciousness studies, critically examining some of the existing debates and raising new questions. So this is like a collection of like essays and discussions about this in this book here, Mind and Consciousness, Philosophical, Psychological, and Cultural Perspectives. So this is one of the links in the description. So go check it out. Go check out the description, you guys. I think this to me is a very, very interesting and always been a type of topic that I find fascinating, and I want to get deeper into and really understand this stuff. I'm trying to read the chat at the same time. Johnny's distracting me as usual.
I'm living proof that it works. So I'm going to try to get a hold of somebody for you to have on this show.
Oh, that'd be great.
And I'm sure you heard of him, Dr. Michio Kaku.
Oh, yeah. If I could get that guy on this show, that would be insane.
Let me try. I know a few people.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, Michio Kaku, wow. He was like creating, like, I think he like basically blacked out his city block, if not further, with doing something in the basement there as a teenager, I think, right? One of his science projects. So, yeah. So exactly, Eddie Faye, this is when you see the black cat cross the path in front of you, right? Clear indicator of a glitch in the matrix. What's up, MPN? What's up? So that's it for the show today, guys. Thanks very much for joining. I do have new memberships are popping up. People are joining as members. We've gotten some gift memberships too, so that helps me, keep this channel growing as I'm hoping to do. And of course, all this money and through the entire month of March, which is actually the birth month of my daughter Hannah. Today is her birthday. She turned 22 today. I'll never forget the moment she was born. It was just the most amazing moment. And I was there, as we say. And thank you guys for your support. And I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next Thursday on my Here and Demo show. Yes.
Robin and I are grateful for each and every one of you tuning in and supporting Laz's channel.
Thank you, Magic Man. And thank you all for your support. And all that money from here through, since the beginning of the year through March, is all going to the wildfire relief funds down in LA through, one or two or three different organizations there. We'll split it up. I think in total, I've probably made about $50-something in this last month of February, which is cool. So that'll go. When we were down there for NAMM, we did donate a lot of clothes and other, stuff that they needed. I took a carload of stuff down when we went to NAMM and delivered it. And we'll probably try to do some more of that if needed in the future, right? You can, of course, donate locally. There are a lot of different organizations you can donate through. Music Cares is a really good one. And you can just go back to some of those wildfire relief organizations. Red Cross is another one that's always helping. And there are, you can even like watch that entire concert that they did, the fire relief one, the fire aid show. They actually expanded that to 2 different concert venues. It became that big. And throughout that entire event, you can see different organizations you can personally donate through if you want. And if you don't have money, there's other ways to donate. You can donate your time. If you're retired like Ron and you've got some time, you can, go on a call center and just connect people to other people that need to be connected, so that's another way you can help. If you don't have money, you might have time, and I really appreciate you guys' time coming and listening to me talk on this show. I know it can be a lot to absorb sometimes, and I really enjoy it. I don't know how much you guys enjoy this stuff, but I find it fascinating. I can't get enough of it. And as I've spoken before about this, I'm seriously considering if I'm able to pull the money together to make it happen, to continue and finish my education. But I don't think I'll ever stop educating myself, but finish the degree program at least for psychology and perhaps master's and PhD, so I can help more people, as an actual counselor in the field, working, with people and helping them deal with trauma of all different kinds. Like I said at the top of my show, right, that there's a lot of different kinds of traumas and things that people have to deal with when it comes to how music therapy can help, anything from anxiety to PTSD, physical and other psychological problems, emotional trauma, depression, grief and loss. There's so many different ways music can be used to help us get through the day, and sometimes just to motivate. One of the best things about music is how it's used as a motivator, right? Get up and go and do stuff right? So do that.
Very true.
And let's see you guys at the next show. What are you guys going to do next? Do you have anything going on, Ron? You did that build of that one guitar that you did, right? And Johnny did his.
Yeah, he did one last night.
Those come like pre-finished already and everything. You just put them together.
Sort of, but he did another one last night that was a little different.
I didn't have time to watch it, but yeah, a headless.
Oh yeah, it looks like your Kiesel.
That's cool. Wow, I'll have to check that out. And thank you, Bay Area Rich, for gifting a bunch of memberships to people and joining as well. I really appreciate you guys. He's been helping Johnny out a lot with a lot of really cool gear and stuff, right? And you're going to be meeting him when?
Actually, he'll be here in Ohio a week from today. I'll be with him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a week from tomorrow.
Right on.
So.
Peggy's enrich my 5 hours. Oh yeah, it's a 5-hour show, the Fire Age show, right? It's definitely worth kicking back.
No. She's talking about the show last night. It was 5 hours.
Oh, oh my God. So, it can take a while to put a guitar together. Took us an hour and a half or two to put a bridge on a guitar, right? So that was cool though. Right on. Were you there to help him out, or was he doing it all?
Yeah. Right. Well, I actually worked on that King V Jackson right there last night.
Oh, right on. Nice.
And then I have Rich. The kit is in Indiana, so it's the next date over now. Finally, he sent another kit to me. It'll be here maybe tomorrow. It says Tuesday.
Right on. Let's end on this. Absolutely. Magic Man says, "Wish this weren't the end of the show. Thanks, dude. But one thing about music that isn't talked about enough is how good it feels to make something, and music allows you to do that in spades." Right?
Very true.
You can be a creator. That's right. So create something, play some music. And if you can't create it, don't worry, man. You'll get there. Just play it. Play some music. Like Eddie Van Halen would always say, right? Just play, man. Keep playing. Just play. That's all you got to do. So I'll be practicing the piano here for this, not recital, but, service that we're going to have for my sister-in-law's dad, his passing. And love you guys for coming on and hanging out, and get out there and play some music, express yourself through music you love, right? And show your love to others through that expression, right? And until next time, you guys, I'll see you on the Gear and Demo show next week. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we'll do something fun. And Ron, what are you going to do? You're going to be on Johnny's show maybe Tuesday or something like that? Or who knows, right?
I think it's Wednesdays now.
Bouncing around.
So it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Usually he does some kind of Van Halen.
Yeah, he'll do a Van Halen show.
Of some kind Tuesday, unless something pops up that he has to really bring out right away.
Yeah.
Recently, go check out Johnny's show, you guys. Recently, he posted up. I don't know if you put it in the description, Johnny, but put it in the description, please. Post that link for people to watch all that stuff.
I've been watching those.
Do you know what that link is? I can post it in the chat right now. It's some I forget the guy's name. I'd have to look it up. But but there is some really cool Van Halen stuff that's been posted up, video and audio. That's really amazing. See if I can find it here in my history. I'm trying to find it. There's like, outtakes of the shooting of Hot for Teacher video. There's, wow, I'm trying to find it. I think on Friday he was talking. Yeah. James Vega. So check it out. James, how's it like this? James Vega. I looked up James Vega. It's like a character in a video game. So I don't know if that's where the real name comes from, but just look up James Vega on YouTube. Let's see, I can even share it from my channel here. Copy the link. Let's go back to my show here, and I'll just put it in there. Music Therapy Labs. Look at here. There you go. And I'll just pop it in here right there. There you go. Click on that link, you guys. If you guys want to see some really cool, never seen before in high quality video and audio of some Van Halen stuff.
It's very interesting.
Go there. Thank you, Johnny, for sharing that with everybody. Yeah, and there was that. Yeah, I watched that whole thing too. By the way, Magic Man talks about, he enjoyed that Wolfgang interview with Billy Corgan. Yeah, Billy's been doing a really great thing. He's had several, musical greats for a while now. Interviewing and talking with them, and the one with there was some touching moments in that one with Wolf. Go check that out too. Let me find that. I'll share that with you guys because this is all valuable stuff here. So Billy Corgan. Yeah, it's called the Magnificent Others series of videos and stuff. That's his channel. It's called that. And let's go back to where I was before. Here we go. Let me load that up for you here and check this one out too. Very, very cool as well. Yeah. So we'll end on that. Thanks for hanging out for an extra long show. We almost went, well, a good hour and a half, a little bit more, right? Because we started a little late.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you guys realize I spend hours prepping for this stuff. So, there were more things I wanted to put into the description, but I can only put so many words in there, just like I can only speak so many words on the show before people get frustrated with me, because Johnny can only handle so much words. But yeah, go out there and put, some music together with some words. And once this recital, or whatever you want to call this event that I'm going to be part of on this next coming weekend is over with, I can spend more time prepping for not just the studio redo here, but also putting that song together, that Randy Rhoads thing that we were working on or talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And how'd it go with you? Did you have any time to mess around with that little song intro?
I've been working on it. Yeah, I've been working on it.
Right on. Maybe we'll use the Randy song that we create for the shows as well, because it'll be original, right?
Yep.
All right, you guys. So until next time, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you in the chats.
Be good, everybody.
Be good.
Thank you.
Or else.